All right. I am reading each sentence. Now, 1 second. We have to. What I'll do, I'll read out the summary of what he's saying in the previous paragraph, then we get the continuity. So, simply saying, in the previous paragraph, there are many ways of looking at this imperfection in the physical world. This way of seeing the problem has its partial validity. I think he's talking about the, everything is fine. Everything is fine in the physical world. God is there. And what is there to bother about? Look at the good things and not the bad things. We discussed this. Shallow optimism, if you want. Okay. So that's what Swami is saying. This way of seeing the problem has its partial validity, but it does not satisfy the human urge for a complete solution, because there is a psychic being in you which wants perfection even in the physical world. So it is not fully valid. That's what he's saying. I read out those 4 lines from Robert Browning's poem. So the bird is flying, the sky is open, the day has come, the sun is shining. What do we have to worry about? God is there. So that's what he's saying. This way of seeing the problem has its partial validity. If you take that attitude, it's good, but doesn't solve the problem. It does not satisfy the human urge for a complete solution. It does not consider many important elements in man, nor does it look at the problem of suffering and evil with a sharp scrutiny. It's a superficial and easy optimism which is as false as a negative pessimism. To think that the physical world is permanently imperfect is a negative pessimism. I can do nothing in the physical world, I have to go above into heaven to solve the problem. This is a negative pessimism. But there is the positive, easy optimism is, oh, everything is all right, don't worry. That also is not correct. That's what Swami is saying. Because we have to correct the errors and the falsehoods in the physical world. This view does not take into account the psychic being in man, which is a divine representative in man. It does not look seriously at pain and suffering, which inflicts mankind with such insistent vehemence. Okay, so we can't neglect that. You have to solve the problem. Okay? At best, this theory of easy optimism, at best this theory says that there is a solution to which we have no access. That's what he's saying. Yes, it is true that there is imperfection in the physical world, but concentrate on the good one. So you are not solving the problem of suffering in the physical world. Now, Swami continues in the summarization. Our deepest being cannot rest contented with such theories. A theory which says the whole is perfect but the parts are imperfect is itself open to the charge of an imperfect view. If you see like that, then it is not perfect. The real solution would be to find the divine within ourselves and also above the cosmos. It's not enough to find the divine only in yourself, but you have to find him above the cosmos also. This double realization of the transcendent and the individual indwelling divine would be the real solution. So, having said that, now we start reading sentence by sentence, the next one that we read. Okay? If the human, I am reading the paragraph we read last time. If the human consciousness were bound to the sense of imperfection and the acceptance of it as a law of our life and the very character of our existence, a reasoned acceptance that could answer in our human nature to the blind animal acceptance of animal nature, then we might say that what we are marks the limit of the divine self-expression in us. Okay? I'll finish the sentence, then we come back. We might believe too that our imperfections and sufferings work for the general harmony and imperfection of things and console ourselves with the philosophic balm offered for our wounds, satisfied to move among the pitfalls of life with as much rational prudence or as much philosophical sagacity and resignation as our incomplete mental wisdom and our impatient vital parts permitted. Huge sentence. We'll go step by step. Okay, so he's saying, if the human consciousness, okay, saw the physical world as imperfect, and that is the very nature of existence. It is imperfect and it is permanently imperfect. If that is the thing, then what is the choice we have? He's saying, then we might say that what we are marks the limit of the divine self-expression in us. The divine can do only this much. This is the nature of the world. He is perfect on top, but he has purposely come down and he is imperfect below. There is nothing we can do about it. It's like a tree that has its roots below and the roots are in the ground. The roots can never be above, the roots are in the ground, imperfect. Married to the soil, and the soil will always remain dense and dark. That's what he's saying. We have to come to that conclusion. Then we might say that what we are marks the limit of the divine self-expression in us. The divine has purposely done this. We can't complain. That's the nature of the reality. We might believe too that our imperfections and suffering, this is another possibility of looking at the problem, another possible way of looking at the problem. We might believe too that our imperfections and sufferings work for the general harmony and perfection of things and console ourselves with this philosophic balm. It's not a physical balm, it's a philosophic balm offered for our wounds. What are our wounds? The sufferings that we have endured, the pain that we have got, the falsehoods that have been imposed on us, these are our wounds. And you console yourself with philosophic balm. And what's that balm? The divine is there, but there must be a purpose in what he's doing. I will quietly, calmly accept it. Okay? So that's what he's saying. Balm offered for our wounds, satisfied to move among the pitfalls of life with as much rational prudence or as much philosophic sagacity and resignation as our incomplete mental wisdom and our impatient vital parts permitted. There are two ways that you can handle this. With your incomplete mental wisdom, you say, this is the nature of the world. You have no solution to it. So accept it calmly and quietly, and instead of being disturbed, be very calm and quiet. There is a word there, sagacity, which will, it means capacity to discriminate. Discriminate which is the good and the bad and the pleasant and the unpleasant. You have the capacity to discriminate. So with philosophic calm, philosophic sagacity, discriminate and say it is better to concentrate on the good than the bad. But the bad is not going to go away. And resignation is a solution. Resign yourself to the fact, and once you resign yourself to the fact, your suffering will be less because you are accepting the imperfections. When you don't accept the imperfections, there's a struggle in you and you will have pain. So if you accept that this is how it is, okay, this is interesting because there is a truth to that also. When you resign yourself, but you resign yourself in two ways. I know that one day a solution will come. That's a positive resignation. There's another resignation. There's nothing I can do about it and I will continuously remain in this negative condition. That's the negative resignation. Two resignations are there. Okay? So, and it can come from our mind, incomplete mental wisdom, or it can come from our vital parts, which is impatient. You want quick results and you are dissatisfied when there is no pleasantness. Okay? Or else, another possibility Self is giving, or else taking refuge in the more consoling fervors of religion, we turn to religion. We might submit to all as the will of God in the hope or the faith of recompense in a paradise beyond, where we shall enter into a happier existence and put on a more pure and perfect nature. This is usually religion he has mentioned, and both the religions have this idea, Christianity as well as Islam, that the paradise beyond, all that we deserve to get, we will get recompense, the reward, or the faith of reward. You have a faith that you will be rewarded perfectly in heaven.
Excuse me.
Yeah, tell me.
What is the meaning of the word sagacity?
That's what I told you. Sagacity means capacity to discriminate. That's what I've noted, maybe from the dictionary itself. Capacity to discriminate. Philosophic capacity to discriminate. If you don't discriminate, you will be in disturbance, no?
Yeah, merci.
Okay. But I would like to check once again, okay, sagacity. So just I'm telling you, I'll just have a look. Sagacity meaning. Yeah. The quality of being sagacious. That's a man of great political sagacity, wisdom. Srendra is saying wisdom, not Srendra, the dictionary. Sagacity is wisdom. Okay. Deep insight. So if you have discrimination, you have deep insight. Okay. Naturally, we are looking at the reality. So I will add that also. Okay. Deep insight. Yeah. Wisdom and deep insight. Okay, I post. That's right. I've added these two words also now. Okay, so that's what he's saying now. We came up to which point? Yeah, put on a more perfect nature. Yes, Christianity also is saying there is a heaven and a hell, and if you have behaved okay in the physical world, then you will go to heaven. But if you have behaved badly, you will go to hell. The concept is also there in the Islam, Jahannu and Jannat. Okay? Jahannu is hell and Jannat is heaven. And when you go there, all the pleasures, even the physical pleasures that you have, you will get there. Okay? This is a religious faith. Okay. But there is an essence. I'm reading the next sentence. But there is an essential factor in our human consciousness and its workings, which, no less than the reason, distinguishes it entirely from the animal. Okay? So, the animal does not have morality, but we have the concept of morality. And there is also the spiritual element in us. So, first of all, there is the animal nature, which goes on just satisfying its ego and what it needs, its individual needs. The second is the morality, which says that individual needs are fine, but there are other people also who have got individual needs and you must not come into conflict with them. So, morality comes in. But then you go to the spiritual level where you get the real truth of things. So, Swami is saying these things are there, essential factor in our human consciousness. He is including, I think, both. He is including morality as well as a spiritual reality within us, the psychic being. With no less than the reason. The reason is our highest element, but there is another higher element which is hidden in you, distinguishes it entirely from the animal. There is not only a mental part in us which recognizes the imperfection, there is a psychic part which rejects it. Okay? The psychic rejects the imperfection. The mind does not reject, it accepts calmly and quietly. It's got reasonable. What can I do about it? I have no control over it. So I accept it calmly and I try as far as possible not to be disturbed. There is a mental attitude. But the psychic attitude is not like that. The psychic attitude says, no, this must be cured. This imperfection, I cannot tolerate. Okay? That's the psychic. A part which rejects it. Rejects what? The imperfection and the animal nature of man. Our soul's dissatisfaction with imperfection as a law of life upon earth, its aspiration towards the elimination of all imperfections from our nature, not only in the heaven beyond, where it would be automatically impossible to be imperfect, but here and now in a life where perfection has to be conquered by evolution and struggle, are as much a law of our being as that against which they revolt. So, when you see the physical world imperfection, mentally you can calm yourself down and say, I accept it calmly. But if the psychic comes forward, calmly you will reject. You will say that no, this is not acceptable to me. Okay? So you try to get rid of it. That's what he's saying. Not only in heaven, but even on earth here it has to become positive. Okay? As much as the law of our being as that against which they revolt. They too are divine. Which one is divine? The evolution and struggle, as much as the law of our being, again that which they revolt. So they too are divine. Which one? A divine dissatisfaction, a divine aspiration. Even the dissatisfaction that you have can be of two types. Okay? The dissatisfaction and also very similarly the doubt. You can have two types of doubt and you can also have two types of dissatisfaction. Normally dissatisfaction disturbs you. It disturbs the being. Okay? I am not satisfied. So there is a trembling in the body. Okay? But this is the negative dissatisfaction. I can do nothing about it. But when you are dissatisfied with something and you make a resolve to conquer it, that's a positive dissatisfaction. Never be fully satisfied with yourself because then you will become static. So you have to be dissatisfied with your imperfections. But this dissatisfaction should not create disturbance in the being. There should be absolutely a calm rejection. That's what Sarva is saying. They are also divine. A divine dissatisfaction and divine aspiration. What is aspiration? I want to get rid of these imperfections. In them is the inherent light of a power within, which maintains them maintains them in us, so that the divine may not only be there as a hidden reality in our spiritual secrecies, but unfold itself in the evolution of nature. The psychic knows that there is a solution. The mind does not know that there is a solution. So the mind can accept a solution by faith, and that also can be very wrong, as in the religions, or it can be the right one. Okay? So Sri is saying that is exactly what we have to do. So we have to accept the yeah. Okay, very clear. He has given so many different types of possibilities. In the previous paragraph, he has discussed the possibility of existentialism. That means you accept calmly, you can't do anything about it. And the other way is the easy optimism. The divine is here, why worry about the other thing? But doesn't solve the problem. Then the problem has to be solved if you can contact your psychic being, then you know there's a faith that it can be conquered. Then the long journey, yogic journey starts. So that's what he's saying. There is a possibility of conquering the imperfections in the physical world. How? Through evolution and through aspiration. That's what he's telling you. Okay? So now we can read the next one. So who will read today in the light? One of you has to read.
Shall I read?
Yeah, go ahead.
In this light, we can admit that all works perfectly towards the divine end by divine wisdom, and therefore each thing is in that sense perfectly fitted in its place. But we say that that is not the whole of the divine purpose. For what is only justifiable finds its perfect sense and satisfaction by what can and will be. There is no doubt a key in the divine reason that would justify things as they are by revealing their right significance and true secret as other, subtler, deeper than their outward meaning and phenomenal appearance, which is all that can normally be caught by our present intelligence. But we cannot be content with that belief to search for and find the spiritual key of things is the law of our being. The sign of the finding is not philosophic intellectual recognition and a resigned or a sage acceptance of things as they are because of some divine sense and purpose in them which is beyond us. The real sign is an elevation towards the spiritual knowledge and power which will transform the law and phenomena and external forms of our life nearer to a true image of that divine sense and purpose. It is right and reasonable to endure with equanimity, suffering, and subjection to defect as immediate will of God. A present law of imperfection laid on our members, but not conditioned, that we recognize it also as the will of God in us to transcend evil and suffering, to transform imperfection into perfection, to rise into a higher law of divine nature in our human consciousness, there is the image of an ideal truth of being, a divine nature, an incipient Godhead. In relation to that higher truth, our present state of imperfection can be relatively described as an undivided life and the condition of the world from which we start as undivine conditions. The imperfections are the indications given to us that they are there as the first disguise not as the intended expression of the divine being and the divine nature. It is power within us, the concealed divinity that has lit the flame of aspiration, pictures the image of the ideal, keeps alive our discontent and pushes us to throw off the disguise and to reveal all in the Vedic faith to form and disclose the Godhead and the manifest spirit, mind, life, and body of this terrestrial creature. Our present nature can only be transitional, our imperfect status, a starting point and opportunity for the achievement of another higher, wider, and greater that shall be divine and perfect, not only by the secret spirit within it, but in its manifest and most outward form of existence.
Most outward form of existence. So, there's a biggish para. So, we'll do one thing. We will get the essence of what he's saying by the summary, and then we will go back to each sentence. But first, we get the basic meaning of what he's saying in the para. So, with this view, okay, so he's saying, one second. Yeah. Okay. He's saying, with this view, and what is that view? That our real indwelling divine element wants perfection within and without. Within ourselves psychologically, we should be perfect. And even without, in the physical world also, there should be no ugliness, there should be no falsehood, there should be no wrong movements. We can admit that each thing is perfect in its place, provided we accept as real the possibility of perfection, even in the external world. Now, this is interesting thing what he's saying, because he's saying the others, that easy optimism, you are saying that everything is perfect, but you don't think of a solution. But here Srimli is saying you can think of it in that way that yes, everything is perfect, but there will be a harmony which is far superior to what exists in the physical world. The two attitudes are a little different. Okay. In the first one, yes, the divine is hiding here in the physical world. He is there. Everything is fine. But there is no permanent solution. Whereas the one that Srimna is giving, yes, you have to admit that the divine is here everywhere, but there is a solution also to the imperfections because they are real. That's what he's saying. So, I'll read out that sentence again, then we can click. With this view that our real indwelling divine element wants perfection within and without, psychologically and physically, we can admit with this view that there is a psychic being in you, we can admit that each thing is perfect in its place, provided we accept as real the possibility of perfection even in the external world. Then it is justified. Easy optimism need not be easy optimism. It can be an optimism which is positive, difficult, but it is positive optimism. what exists is justifiable. Yes, there is what exists is imperfection, but I can justify it. You can say that. Even if imperfect, when placed in relation to what will be in future. Okay? There is a gradation of perfection and things will become definitely better. You have that faith. The present imperfection is justifiable, understandable, acceptable only when seen as a future perfection. The materialist and the existentialist is not seeing that. He is accepting the imperfections without giving a solution. You are accepting the imperfections by giving a solution. You are saying that this will one day change. Okay? The main difference is the others are thinking that the imperfection is permanent, and you are thinking, if you are a integral yogi, you are thinking that the imperfection is impermanent. It will be changed one day. That's the difference. Can reveal the for this justification, a divine reason can reveal the exact significance of the present, seeming imperfection. And what is that explanation? The explanation is that the truth is there, but it is covered up by many, many layers, like exactly like the, uh, uh, and that truth is there in the physical world also. Take any fruit, okay? The real stuff is inside, which will give you delight, okay? Take a coconut or a pineapple outside, harsh, thorny, external, okay? And then the real stuff is inside. So you have to remove all the coverings. That's what your faith will tell you. For this justification, a divine reason can reveal the exact significance of the present. And what is the present? Seeming imperfection. But that seeming imperfection is actually the outer covering. Inside deep, you must have the capacity to go into it. If you say that I have no capacity, then you are a pessimist. But if you say that no, I can go into it, then you are an optimist. Okay? Can reveal the exact significance of the present, seeming imperfection. But this secret significance is to be experienced and not merely to be understood by the mind. You have to experience it actually. Otherwise, no use accepting calmly, quietly. It is not going to solve your problem. Of course, it is perfectly all right to face life's difficulties with patient endurance and equanimity as a law of God, provided we also recognize that the divine law includes transformation of the imperfect into the perfect. So everybody is saying samatha is fine. Samatha is fine because it gives you a little bit of peace. But only samatha is not good enough. You must have samatha, but you must also have the faith that one day everything will become perfect. Then samatha is acceptable. But a mere hopeless samatha is of only partial value. That's what he said. That possibility and capacity is there in us. So we can, the power is there in us and we can change the imperfections within ourselves as well as the physical world. Within ourselves is easier, that's what the yogis do, but outside is more difficult, and that's exactly the work that Swayambhu did. Took the evolution to the next step. Okay? That's a gigantic work. The relative perfection in the individual is much easier. Hundreds and thousands of yogis have done it. Okay? But the perfection in the physical world is more difficult. But it is within your grasp. Every individual has that possibility because he is essentially the divine. Sorry. The imperfections are shown to us if you have the faith. The imperfections are shown to us as the initial disguises, not as finalities. They are only coverings, and you have to uncover the reality within. The soul in man sees the imperfect, lights the flame of aspiration, urges us upwards to get rid of the outer robes and the coverings and reveal the secret, perfect, divine everywhere. Our present nature is transitional, not final. It is not true that the physical world is permanently imperfect. The ultimate realization must be the manifestation of the perfect in the living. That's what he's saying in the summary. Okay, I read out the summary of what is saying in the paragraph. Now we can go back to the language part. Okay. I go back to the beginning of the paragraph. So we have 15 minutes. So we'll finish the paragraph today. In this light, okay, and what is that light? That there is perfection possible. We can admit that all works perfectly towards the divine end by divine wisdom, and therefore each thing is in a sense perfectly fitted in its place. This mother says very often. She says that the animals are perfect in their own plane. Okay? The mind is perfect in its own plane because it has been assigned a particular function and it is doing that function perfectly. But when you compare it with something else, then it is imperfect. This is what we have to understand. But we say that that is not the whole of our divine purpose. For what is only justifiable finds its perfect sense and satisfaction by what can and will be. What is the what can be, not what is. What is imperfect, but can that imperfection become perfect? Yes, we must have that faith. That's very simple. For what is only justifiable. He has repeated, there is a style of saying those, very often he does this. For what is only justifiable. You can replace the first is by what exists. For what exists, imperfection, is only justifiable, finds its perfect sense and satisfaction by what can and will be. Not what is, but what can and will be. Okay? The future will change the present. That's what he said. There is no doubt a key to the divine reason that would justify things as they are by revealing their right significance and true secret as other, subtler, deeper than our outward meaning and phenomenal appearance, which is all that can normally be caught by our present intelligence. Present intelligence, limited mind. Okay? That's a present intelligence. But our intelligence can become future intelligence. That will be far superior to what it is now. So, Surendra is saying, if we accept the imperfection of the physical world, it can be justified provided you believe that it will improve. If you don't believe that it will improve, then your justification of things in the physical world is half true only, not fully true. Okay? But that is only justifiable. But that is only justifiable. The imperfection is justifiable if you think of it as a covering, okay? As an outward. Okay? This is it. I find it very interesting that that's a symbol. We keep saying that everything in the physical world is a symbol of the highest truths. Now look at these fruits. It's exactly like that. Some fruits are so, take the orange, it is bitter, okay, the rind is bitter, but inside is sweet. Okay, take the pineapple, it is so rough outside, thorns, thorny, but inside, wonderful. Okay, coconut also, so hard. I've given you 3 examples of totally different things. One is bitter, one is thorny, and one is hard. So these are only the outer coverings. These outer coverings is what the physical world is. In the physical world, deep inside behind these coverings is the secret. The secret reality which is ever sweet and wonderful. That's what we say. Okay? There is no doubt a key to the divine reason that would justify things as they are by revealing their right significance and true secret as other, subtler, deeper than our outward meaning and phenomenal existence, which is all that can normally be caught by our present intelligence. Our present intelligence is seeing only the outer coverings. But if we have the patience, we can remove the outer coverings, just as in a fruit, and get to the deep, wonderful stuff inside. Okay? That's exactly, it's a very apt image, and that's exactly what we have to do. We have to be patiently, we have to remove the outer covering. It takes time, but that can be done. Okay? The subtler, deeper than our outward meaning and phenomenal appearance. First, he is using two words, phenomenal and appearance. Phenomenal means an event in the physical world, starting, developing, ending. So it is ending. The imperfection will end. That's number one. And secondly, it's only an appearance. It's a covering. You have to remove that. But we cannot be content with that belief. What is the belief? That one day it will change. Okay? That's not enough. Okay? So what you have to do? You have to set about going in search of it. To search for and find the spirituality of things is a law of our being. It's not enough to say, oh, the divine is there, it's all right. No, you have to find the divine. That's what he's saying. And it is there in our capacity. The sign of the finding is not a philosophic intellectual recognition or a resigned or sage acceptance of things as they are, because of some divine sense and purpose in them, which is beyond us. The real sign, okay, it's not an intellectual conception that yes, the divine is here. No, the real sign is an elevation towards spiritual knowledge and power, which will transform the law and phenomenon of external forms of our life nearer to a true image of the divine sense and purpose. So, mental belief that yes, the divine is here and everything will be fine without doing yoga is not good enough. You have to do yoga and find out and execute and find out that perfection. That's what Sartre is saying. Okay. It is right and reasonable to endure with equanimity, suffering and subjection to defect as the immediate will of God. So, another way of looking at things. It is right and reasonable to endure with equanimity. Endure with equanimity is samatha. Okay? Yes, the divine is imposing some imperfections on me, but I endure it with samatha. Just 1 second. There was a ring at the door, that's why I looked. Okay, so he's saying that you have to, there's so many grades. Okay? First, you don't believe that there is imperfection in the physical world. There is imperfection in the physical world and do nothing about it. I accept it. Second, you accept it, but you don't do anything about it. Now Sam is saying accept it and do something about it. So, to rise to the higher law of divine nature. In our human consciousness, there is an image of an ideal truth of being, a divine nature, an incipient Godhead. Incipient, the word means initial, starting, okay? Beginning to happen. That is incipient. Incipience is the beginning of something, initial stages. That is there. God is there, but he is covered up. You have to discover him. In relation to that higher truth, our present state of imperfection can be relatively described as an undivine life. It's true that if we see it that way, we are starting world as an undivine conditions. There is falsehood, there is distortion, there is perversion, all these things are there. The imperfections are the indication given to us that they are there as first disguises, not as the intended expression of the divine being and the divine nature. You have to realize that these imperfections are planted there for a purpose. Now that's a very interesting thing. Suppose you don't have a psychic being and there's imperfections, then you will accept it calmly or reject it. But you have nothing, you can't do anything about it. But suppose the psychic being is there in you, you will not accept and you will also say that I have to get rid of these imperfections. And the imperfections are an indication, because when the psychic being is there, oh, there is something imperfect. I must conquer this difficulty. So that is there in you. Each human being has the capacity of conquering his own difficulties. The imperfections are the indication given to us that they are there as a first disguise, not as the intended expression of the divine being and the divine nature. It is not the permanent thing. It's a power within us, the concealed divinity. The concealed divinity is our psychic being that has lit the flame of aspiration, pictures the image of the ideal, keeps alive our discontent. Now the discontent here is positive. Okay? I'm not satisfied with my imperfection, and pushes us to throw off the disguise and to reveal, or in the Vedic phrase, to form and disclose the divine in the manifest spirit, mind and life and body of terrestrial creature. So the divine is a bud in us, but he has to become, we have to allow it to bloom and become the full efflorescence. That's what he said. Our present nature can only be transitional. It is not permanent. Our imperfect status, a starting point and opportunity for the achievement of another higher, wider and greater that shall be divine and perfect, not only by the secret spirit within it, but in its manifest and most outward form of existence. Not only can we become psychologically perfect, but we can also become externally, we can change conditions in the physical world. That's what he's saying. So we have come to 8:30 past, so we will stop here for today. Okay? And we have only 2 minutes left. So we'll take up this one next tomorrow. Tomorrow is Thursday. So we can take it up tomorrow. So let's make a note of it.
Yes, please.